The American family is in a crisis. If you look at children born out of wedlock, um, queer heads of households, divorce rates, blended families, mixed families, children raised by grandparents, aunts, uncles, if your definition of family is as narrow as one husband, one wife, and 2.5 kids, then the American family is in crisis. Sex and family converge, I think, in a very interesting way, in interesting ways to talk about this moral crisis. First, to talk about family. The reality is that Americans live in all of these forms of family. And so the dysfunction is in believing that one form of family is right over the other. In the mix of all of this, welfare is neglected. The welfare of the children, the welfare of the adults, the mental and physical well-being is compromised when you have people who are not living to their fullest, people who are not able to be honest or feel safe in their own households. So it doesn't take a double male or double female headed household, or a single mother, or a poor mother, or a drug addict mother, or a crackhead mother, or it doesn't take any of that to create dysfunction. What about all the people who stay in marriages that are just unhappy for one reason or another, that are abusive, or people simply compromise so much of themselves on many different levels? We've heard of people who convert religiously because one person's religion doesn't allow religion outside. Class is another sticky issue, and race, region. And if we look at all of these aspects of social identity, there is a moral panic, but the moral panic is neglecting who we are. The moral panic is having a crisis around sodomy and blaming gay people. The moral crisis is neglecting that if you look at porn in anywhere, you will find dozens and dozens and dozens of heterosexual couples that are fascinated by sodomy, and yet there are sodomy laws that are only enforced and stigmatize same-sex couples, as if only same-sex couples had sodomy. And I pick out sodomy as a particular sex act that is not inclusive of all queer people, because not all queer people have an interest in sodomy. But I think it's that fear around sodomy that gets projected into people's minds that says, if you allow this, there will be a crisis in the American family. If you allow this, then... But the crisis is already there. So when we look at the crisis, the panic that same-sex couples create in American families, it really has nothing to do with American families. It has to do everything to do with the dysfunction that is there. Because if we allow people to, with pride, with vigor and happiness, to create a variety of forms of family, be it grandparents who raise children, aunts and uncles who step in when parents can't, or complement this extended family network like what I have. If we look at something like that, which is technically, I have an uncle who's on his third marriage who has 2 baby mamas, and outside of, 2 baby mamas and an ex-wife who is also the mother of one of his, of his first son. So you look at stuff like this, he's technically dysfunctional. But by my definitions, he's enabled a great deal of what we call Americana. And if we start to appreciate that, we won't have the panic around don't ask, don't tell, because that won't seem so threatening. And don't ask, don't tell, I think, is an intersection of sex, because when you hear people saying, what's the panic around homosexuals and being intimate and in showers, and let's face it, being naked in a shower, men, homosexuals and heterosexuals blended, what's the panic? That some homosexual is going to, attack you? That kind of ego is premised upon, A, that you're worthy of it, or B, that inherently being in the shower with a gay person is going to make them want to, or make you feel sexualized. And I would say, look at the experience of women. Women are sexualized in all sorts of areas. You can meet a man as a friend, as a superior, as an inferior, as your son's friend, and he will sort of sexualize you, and you see all these sorts of fantasies in all of our popular culture. What this says is that men really deeply feel that they have the right, that there's an investment in sexism, that men can subordinate women's bodies, that any man, given the opportunity, will exploit a woman. And if any man will exploit a woman, then, well, hell, if you give homosexuals the chance, then of course they'll exploit men. That's the logic behind it. And that kind of moral panic, again, has nothing to do with homosexuals per se. As I said with the example of sodomy, it has everything to do with this inferiority complex. If there's anything out of order in my environment, I will feel inferior. I will feel dysfunctional. I will have this label. If I have to be accountable towards the happiness in my own household and towards my own children, then it won't take me 50 to 100 years to recognize childhood depression as a clinical diagnosis that children have, or the myriad of forms of dysfunction that we produce in our households because of who we are as parents. We don't have to be accountable to that if we can point fingers at same-sex couples. But by pointing fingers, we also detract from having to say, what is it really that family is supposed to do? What is the institution that family is supposed to create? What does it really mean to take care of children, to provide a safe, stable environment where adolescents can grow, can learn, can be stimulated, and be protected? Now, I do think that a one-parent, one-headed household is one workable method. But I think prioritizing it over all other forms of marriage or family, stands in the face of what we actually do. And it means that when people are in those marriages and they want to have some sort of emotional contact, connection, or sexual connection outside of that, it means that they feel demonized. It means that they feel dirty. It means that they would do that in private. So it means that there cannot never be a polyamorous relationship because that's inherently evil, according to some people, and dysfunctional by very narrow definition. That's all I'm saying.